welcome to the third episode of the AxD Podcast, where we dive deep into the world of technology, innovation, and entrepreneurship through insightful conversations on the future of American manufacturing. I am Mihir Deshmukh, Chief Technology Officer at AxD. In episode 2, we explored the power of advanced planning and scheduling, highlighting its key role in ensuring on time deliveries and minimizing inventory levels. Continuing with our focus on digital transformation, today we bring you insights on the topic digital transformation on a budget, a myth or a reality. We will delve deep into the journey from brownfield to greenfield industries, examining how different levels of digitalization can be implemented based on technological maturity. Let me introduce our guests. I'm incredibly happy to welcome back Mr. Raj Batra. For those of you who are watching for the first time, Raj currently serves on the board of directors of several renowned American public, PE backed, and private companies. Raj has previously served as the CEO of Digital Industries Siemens USA and has 30 plus years of experience in the automation industry. He is the chairman and co founder of AxD, advisors to the world's largest sovereign wealth funds in digital transformation, Industry 4.0, AI, and advanced manufacturing. Our second guest for the day is Mr. Nick Skope, Vice President of New Business Development at Electro-matic, an authorized partner of Siemens and several other OEMs in the space of automation. Nick holds a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering from Lawrence Technological University, an alma mater that he shares with Raj, and has over 25 years of experience in advanced manufacturing and automation. We are delighted to have you here with us, Nick. Welcome.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks, Mihir.
Yes. So, welcome to the podcast. And I think we couldn't have found two better people to talk on the topic at hand today because Raj and Nick, you're familiar with each other and you've been acquainted for quite some time, both in business and personally. And you've worked in this field for a long time. Luckily, I had the opportunity to meet both of you at IMTS Chicago in 2024, and we had some great conversations back then in September too. So, I think we can kick it off, and I would like to hand it over to Raj now.
Yeah, thank you, Mihir. Thanks for the great introductions. Look, I mean, this is going to be a fun discussion. When you make it to the AxD podcast, we only bring on the some really renowned people in manufacturing, and we believe the insights are going to help American manufacturers and U.S. manufacturing, given all that's going on in the industry today. So, and of course, Nick and I are no strangers to each other, as you mentioned. So we've known each other for a long time and worked together for many, probably decades, Nick. And so it's great to have you join me. I'm going to moderate this, which is always fun for me. Normally, I have to do the talking, and someone else is moderating. But this time I have the pulpit, so I'm going to do the moderating. But again, great to have you join us on the AxD podcast. You've been in the industry for a number of decades, and you've seen a lot of advances in automation. You've seen more networking of assets. You've seen some of the people challenges that American manufacturing has gone through right now. So, when you think of all those things, right, more automation with machines, more networking, more advanced automation replacing aging assets. Now we talk about the world of data, right, and pulling data out of assets and how valuable that data is. So, maybe let me ask you for your opinion, Nick, because you touch, a lot of machine builders, a lot of users, a lot of corporate facilities in the work that you do. And tell me about data. Tell me why, number one, it's crucial to pull data out of these machines, data out of the assets. Is it being used? Does it offer people tangible benefits today? And if you're a big stakeholder of a company, is it something that they should have a game plan to do?
Yeah, no, it's great question. So I think, many people have said, data is the new gold or whatnot, right? As far as just our daily life. But if you look at manufacturing in an industrial space, it's huge. It's very, very important. How the data gets out of the machines and how do you enable older machines to produce data is a very big challenge right now, especially for smaller, mid-sized companies. And how do you even start that journey, right? So that's a whole nother topic we could certainly touch on. But I think if you look at data today, and machines, especially new machines, are producing tons of data. How is that data being deployed, and what value are you getting out of the data as a manufacturer? That varies, right? If you look at large users, for sure, they have tons of engineers, and they're doing a lot of very interesting things with data and pushing some data up to the edge. And how do you process that, and how do you really visualize the data? The smaller tiers and smaller manufacturers, yeah, I don't know. I think they throw it in a data lake and they maybe access it once in a while, but I don't think they're really getting the value that's there, and or they're getting too much data and they just don't know what to do with it. So I think there's a big struggle on how do you start, who do you start with, like what is your real driving factor to really try to access data, and then try to draw up a roadmap of like what are we trying to accomplish and how do we scale it.
Well,
So yeah, it's an interesting topic for sure. It's a lot of stuff being discussed about it.
Yeah, well, what do you see the biggest bottleneck being? And obviously, small manufacturers don't have the same resources and capabilities as the bigger and larger ones, which you rightly pointed out. But what do you see as the big bottleneck? Is it labor? Is it the usability of the tools, or is it the fact that companies just haven't figured out how to really monetize this?
Yeah, I think it's trying to find the proper use case and how do you get your value out of it. So if you're going to invest a whole bunch of money to do all the cybersecurity around moving the data, pushing it to the cloud, doing all that work, what's your return on your investment, right? And that really has to be what you start with, is like, what am I trying to accomplish versus let's just go grab data for data's sake and get all this vibration analysis and all this other information from the machine and then do nothing with it. It's just a waste of everyone's efforts.
Yeah, great. That's great. That's great insight. Somehow I always think about the consumer world in our consumer lives. You know, you look at all the devices that are networked and on IoT, and we figured that out in a much faster, more sophisticated way, right? You think of Ring doorbells and Nest thermostats and Sensi's and all the things that you connect, all the IoT devices connected in your house today, and they're all working on data, and they're accumulating data and feeds, and even to the point where you're paying a subscription fee for it, right? To be able to have it. And so we haven't found a way to get that in American manufacturing yet, you know, in a very widespread way. Now, you know, I guess my other question would be thinking about the geopolitics, thinking about this incredible $10 trillion of investment coming in the United States, right? With all that's happening with trade and tariffs and making more in the country. You know, do you feel that these greenfields are going to be in a better position to capitalize on this?
I certainly do. I think that, and even brownfields, right? Just expanding production capability on a current factory right now, trying to do more with less. Yeah, we're hearing all kinds of talks about future plans, a lot of quotation and advisement that's happening right now in the industry. Of course, there's still a lot of concern as far as what's going to happen coming up here in, say, August 1st, or other deadlines that have implications on tariffs and whatnot. So it's very interesting. I think, you know, if you look back in the last 5 years of what we've gone through with COVID, supply chain shortages, and now tariffs, it's been challenging to say the least for everybody, right?
Speaking on how to make the best use of the data, the experience we as AXT have had in some of the less technologically mature markets like Asia is that there is a certain shop floor level resistance to having some of these data acquisition architectures put in place because it has implications for them. In both of your experiences in the US, which is decades of experience, do you see a similar problem there, in the sense that even if the top leadership wants that change or wants that transparency on the shop floor with the data acquisition, there is somehow some level of resistance from the people actually on the shop floor?
Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
let me take a shot at that first, Mihir, and then Nick can certainly add to it. So I think this notion of accelerating digital transformation and using more advanced tools and more advanced automation and just, you know, enhancing what's on a factory floor. You know, the US has always been an environment where there's a lot of resistance to change in those environments. So you have a labor force is very cultured on doing a certain thing. And even if some of the top people want to do it, it has to find its way down, and it has to infiltrate the masses of the people that are going to make it work, right? And I think you find this sort of silent resistance sometimes, and you know, this willingness to not change. And I think when you have that, you have to find the inertia points to get it to the zone where people believe it, they see the use case, they can monetize it, they're making money at it, and it's not something that's a science experiment, and they don't know what the end result of that is. So I think it's very symptomatic of what we see in the United States. probably what holds digital transformation back in an aggressive way. Now, the good thing about this is you have millennials coming in to the workforce. Boomers are retiring in record numbers, and they're the gatekeepers of a lot of this, legacy technology. But there are also some great things that boomers bring. I don't want to make it sound all bad because there's accumulated knowledge and know-how. But the millennials come in and they have a tech savvy environment in a view where they just may not do it the same way, and they don't typically want to because they've grown up with an iPhone, they've grown up connected to the internet, they've grown up gaming, they've grown up using things that completely are predicated on data and analytics and IoT and graphics and simulation and all this stuff. So I think you see this shift in the workforce, and the workforce is probably the biggest topic in accelerating adoption.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Raj. And I'd add to that the factory floor people, they're concerned about their job, and when they start hearing about technology topics they don't understand, and no one really explains to them the why, which should be one of the first things that someone should start to do if they're going on any type of journey is, why are we doing this? How does it impact the day-to-day workforce? And why is this a good thing, right? Like they immediately feel, oh, my job's at risk. Am I going to get automated out of my position? And we don't have the people. And a lot of countries don't have the people. So what you're trying to do is explain to them, we want to repurpose you into a different role, a more high valuable role instead of doing a monotonous task. That's why we're automating, or that's why we're taking data. And that's really the goal behind it. And I think if that's done better, more people will be less resistant to change, and they'll understand and buy in earlier.
Yeah, and I'll just
thank you so much.
And Mihir, just the last point I would make on that, with this $10 trillion of potential investment coming in the United States, and a lot of these things are already inked. So, when the administration announces that this early in the administration, and you're seeing a lot of tariff deals being cut and trade deals being cut, and that comes with U.S. investment to manufacture in the country, to be tariff free. And I believe we're going to do this in a very sophisticated way. We'll build sophisticated plants and manufacturing facilities that will capitalize on the latest in technology. But the question is, it's going to be a labor challenge to find all the right people to occupy these places and do things. So when you think about AxD, you think about the accumulated know-how we have, right, all over the world, and the expertise we bring. I mean, it's going to be very, very valuable, and so much can be done in simulation and in a digital way that you don't always have to have everybody here to do it. So it gives us a great advantage in using the worldwide network.
Got it. Thank you so much.
So Nick, look, I mean, you have a lot of small companies out there, small and mid-sized companies starting out, and we talk about digital transformation, and of course that sometimes means different things for different people. Where there's Industry 4.0 mixed in there. It's probably more clear in Europe when we talk about these terms, because a lot of these terms have been pioneered, Industry 4.0, and they really have a playbook for it, and it's very, very, I would say maybe not perfectly defined, but very, very well defined. But digital transformation, small companies are starting out on that journey, and it can be daunting for them, right? There's a lot there, and we talk about digital threads and all these things, and yet we don't always see companies doing this, right?
Sure.
So it sounds like it's a better PowerPoint discussion than it is a practically executable discussion, where a company, and especially a small sized company, could go implement this, make money at it, get the return on investment, return on capital they're going to deploy to do it, and then see a big gain out of it. So just thinking about all this, and what's your view on it, and how do you think those small companies could potentially scale with this?
Yeah, no, it's a great topic, and for sure, if you look at a company like Siemens, right, they have amazing technology, and they talk about this all-inclusive digital transformation and start to finish and digital design all the way through the value chain to, you're making a product and feeding it all back. For someone to implement all that right from the get-go, it's daunting. It never happened, right? So how do you start to take pieces of it and take the most high valuable pieces and get started, right? So, our view of the world is like, if you're a small machine builder, your digital transformation could be just getting some sensors on my machine and getting some critical feedback, and just start there. And now if you're a little bit more advanced and you have some intelligence on your factory floor, maybe it's like, all right, well, let's start looking at, how do we plan our process better? How do we optimize material flow within the factory? Or how do we optimize our new machines coming in? And what are we demanding from our machine builders as far as digital twins and whatnot? So it varies so much, but what we're trying to do, and I know AxD is trying to do the same thing, is enable people to get started. And that could be like, I've got this one problem process. Let's digitalize it. Let's make a digital twin out of it. Let's really analyze it. And then we can fix it virtually and then take the know-how from the virtual model and put it into the real world and really see gains that way.
Yeah. Yeah, great. And I was and I think, beyond digital twin being well, I think digital twins today are being used, and they are, you are using simulation, and I think that's probably one of the good advances, and that probably is the great advance in digital transformation, is being able to simulate, right? And I think simulation is happening at all different scales and all different levels. I think digital threads are going to be a while. People don't know exactly what it is and how to make it work, and so you hear a lot of the nomenclature being thrown around, but you see very few practical examples of it being deployed. Now, maybe that's going to change in the future. For all that we talked about with labor, but I think simulation, to your point, is really one of those game changers, right? Where you can optimize a lot of things and not physically have it done. I know in automation it's done. I know you can simulate, loads and automation systems without having to be there, and that there are big game changing advantages out of that, right? And that could be a big step forward. And then when you think about digitalization strategies, brownfield and greenfield. I mean, the United States, we're a brownfield environment, right? Predominantly, a lot of aging assets at the end of their life right now. I don't know, you walk into any factory 100 feet, in any direction from you, small or mid-size, even large size, and you're going to find technology there that's 30 or 40 years old, right? So brownfield is very prevalent here, and there has to be a lot of modernization that goes on in those brownfields. So knowing that we still have more brownfields than anything else, and we have greenfields on the way with the economic stimulus and the 10 trillion of investments, I mean, can you give us a little bit of color on your view of the brownfield and greenfield, and how's that going to work together, right? So,
Sure.
How are companies? You got, on one hand, companies got to find a way to upgrade, 1980s or 90s technology. And on the other side, they're trying to get super sophisticated in these cutting edge plants and cutting edge manufacturing facilities. So, I mean, how do you think about that? And how do you counsel companies to make that a smoother transition?
Yeah, that's a very, very difficult question for sure, but there's a lot of moving parts to that. So you can take one example of, you've got a factory that's been there since the 80s or late 90s, and you're adding machinery to that factory to optimize or to bring in a new line or whatnot, but it still has to communicate to the old machinery. So right there is a challenge. Like, how do you make that happen? How do you have dissimilar networks talking together? And then how do you even get data out of the old machinery to flow into the process that you have now, right? And there's tools and different solutions that we certainly consult our customer base on, and it's there. It's not simple, but it's there, right? And then if you look at complete new builds, you can take a different approach, right? There you can start looking at, does some of the edge ecosystem and technology make sense to start implementing from the ground floor, right? Like what differentiates that and the processing capabilities and how you lay out factories versus how they did 10, 20, 30 years ago. And you can have those discussions, and you can kind of mix and match or add some where it makes sense, or go all in and do it from the whole clean sheet approach. So we're seeing a lot of different things. We're working with some large manufacturers that are looking and embracing edge. Some of them are embracing some virtual PLCs, which is a pretty wild idea if you think about it, that a PLC could reside a couple kilometers away and running a process and not having any issues doing it, right? That having that discussion 10 years ago or 15 years ago, it's a non-starter. People would laugh at it, and now it's a reality. So in the next 5 or 10 years, where all this technology goes is going to be pretty exciting and pretty frightening to some people that don't want to change, to your point earlier, right?
Yeah. And I think the more usability that you drive into it, and the easier it is, the more adoption you're going to get, right? I think about the IoT tools we use today, how easy they are to plug in, get connected, and you can look at your data, whether it's your car app for your electric car or your Ring doorbell or your thermostat. I mean, it's connected fast, and you can get data, and you can understand how to use it, and it's giving you insights on what you're saving and what you're and you feel good about that. And I think, tech companies have to figure out how to do that on the manufacturing floor to speed adoption.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
it's,
and
but
yes, so I was just about to say, when we met in Chicago last September, we got a chance to visit the Siemens booth, and they were actually showcasing some of their most cutting edge software tools for digitalization, such as mechatronic concept design and other tools that they have in Machinum. I think maybe a follow-up to this, and since Raj, you've worked in Siemens, and Nick, you deal with a lot with Siemens and their software tools, is do you see that because some of these tools are very advanced and kind of intimidating to use, and not just on the cost level, but also on the implementation level, that kind of the roadmap that you mentioned, Nick, where you start slowly and maybe some companies are just ready to use MCD or such software, but is there some example that you can give where the companies just slowly ramp up the level of digitalization, even if they are a combination of brownfield and greenfield?
sure. Yeah, absolutely. We're working with a few companies right now. You mentioned Machinum. There's a lot of neat technology happening within the Machinum portfolio. One of them is adaptive control. So if you think about, you have a CNC operation that's doing milling or just some roughing applications. If you could just add in a software product, do nothing different to the G code, and pick up 10 to 20% throughput on that machine, because you're speeding the time of air cutting and just optimizing the process without being an expert. Again, just using the tools that are available, and then also extending tool life. That's a huge savings, right? That will pay for itself in less than a year, and we're starting to see some people embrace that. Of course,
I see.
people get a little skittish, and you have to kind of get them over that first initial, like, guys, we're not touching the G code, we're not rewriting the whole automation by the machine. It's literally dropping in this module. We'll show you how it works. Right? So that's a cool way to get started, and you'll see the cost savings right away.
Yeah, great. Nick, thanks. Great insights. I mean, there's obviously work to be done in the United States, and exciting times here with U.S. manufacturing going through the metamorphosis that it's going through, and labor as well. And I think there's probably never been a better time to manufacture in the United States and have a catalyst to put all these greenfields up, and the foreign investment and these deals that are being cut. I think it's going to be a really interesting journey in the next decade for the U.S. to produce in proximity to the markets they serve, right? And there's a big stimulus to be able to do it. So, and I think we're all perfectly positioned to be able to help and capitalize on that with AxD and our independent entities and companies. So
300%. It's a very, very exciting time. I think the next 5 to 10 years will be pretty amazing with the technology changes and just the opportunities that everyone has in the U.S.
Yeah. Okay, great. Hey, always a pleasure it was fun. I got to do the grilling this time, and you had to answer all the tough, you had to answer all the tough questions, but that was super fun, and always fun to get online with you guys, and have a great day.
Yeah, enjoyed it.
Yes,
Thanks.
thank you so much, Raj
Thank
and
you.
Nick. Thanks for your time. I always appreciate it.
Thanks, Mihir.
Have a good one.
Okay.
That brings us to the end of a very insightful conversation. As an engineer working in this space, I'm happy to hear the perspective from people who have worked at the C-suite level and have had the kind of exposure Raj and Nick have enjoyed. I'm sure that this panel will have more such conversations in the near future. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, leave a comment, and let us know what you'd like us to cover next. Until then, keep innovating and stay inspired.